This video gives you a short introduction into para3D. I just create a box 10 by 10 centimeters and I open my menu para3D, and I have actually two options. I can just assign a controller to this object, or I just create an array, and we want to start with creating an array, and we can also rename this and just say this is array intro. And there's also the option to say keep original objects, which I actually want to do, and I just go into array count 10 by 10 and go into create. Okay, here we go. Here's the menu, and this is the node of my object. If I just select these objects and with cross section, you can see that these are actually 101 objects. This means also this object on top, which is just a copy of the first object. And what I can do is I can just open my node, and para3D works like this, that you have nodes which you can connect via wires, and you can add functions, connections, mathematical functions, always with these wires, and you connect them with something like controllers. And here you can see that you have different kind of controllers. You can also get more information about this, and we just start with a really simple controller, which is the linear controller. You can also see that the black ones are the controllers you can use for this information. The gray ones are the ones which you can actually not use for this. So if I just enter len like linear controller, I do double click, and you can just see that my linear controller is added, and you can just also see what it actually did to my object. Okay, we zoom out with my scroll button. Okay, we will create another object. I just go into extended objects and I just choose this hydra. I just go into a dodecahedra and just change a little bit the settings, a little bit like a football, and I add one edit poly on top like this, and we go again into create parametric array, and this time we just say assign controller, and we just call this para3D, and I go into create, and we just see that here is another node, my para3D, and I can just open it, and I can see all the elements. So every controller, every modifier I added to this object will also appear here. And what's also interesting is that all these nodes have the basic information in terms of transformation, like position, rotation, scale. Like my 3D objects, you can see in 3D Studio Max that I have this position, rotation, and scale. A little bit like here, I have object related informations like I had in my basic cube. So all these options, length, width, height, and length segments are at this element. And with the other one, with the header, you can also just see I can just control all the information in my para3D on top to all the modifiers I added with my and my modifier list actually here. So there's a lot of information, but if you once understand this, that it's just a representative of the information here in my 3D Studio Max, then it's quite easy to understand. If I, for example, go into the height of my objects, for example my boxes, then there's one confusing thing. I just thought I get into the height, but I just still see my linear controller of position. So what you always have to see, that you untick all the other parameters, so you only have the height. And if you just only have the height, you can see there's a height of 10 because I produced a cube of 10 by 10 centimeters, and can just change it to 15 and press OK. And you can just see that you can control everything really well. If you go into right mouse click, you can also say uncheck all, and that's an easier way of unchecking all the information so you can work with this properly. And of course you can also say copy, filter unused channels and things like this. Okay, what you can also do is just, if you go into hide, you can just add other controllers, like a controller like a pattern controller, and then you just create a pattern of, for example, 10 centimeters, and the next cube should have 50 centimeters, and then on the next line the first one has 50 centimeters, and then it has 10 centimeters, and then you have to do one thing. You just go into update controller, because a controller like this is selected. You have the option to say update controller or update node, and I go into update controller, and you can already see that you created a pattern with 50 centimeter height, 10 centimeter height, 50 centimeter height, and like this. And there's the next thing you have to understand. Once you added a controller or changed the parameter, you have to update, and you can update this controller, like I choose a controller and just go into update. For example, here I just enter something like 30 and I go into update. Or you can also update the object or the node of the object, and this is this button next to this. And the others I don't use to open often. You can disconnect selected controllers or disconnect all controllers. These are the main thing in this lower area. If we just have a look right now at this top menu bar. So the first thing in this top menu bar, you can see this add, which is really helpful. You can add a lot of things in Power, like a new parametric array. You can have compound objects like Boolean operation, contour generator for producing sectionings, disassemble for digital production method, extract wireframes also probably for digital production methods, a new parametric mesh, parametric shape. You have a labeling system where you can just say this is just testing, and you have a long list of controllers which are organized in a nice way, just related to their topic and what you can actually do with these kind of things. And at the end of the day, add-ons like paint for heat map, export to Excel, keyframe maker for animation, and things like this. Okay, the next thing you have is for removing nodes and adding nodes. I don't use it too often, but you can already see that you have a really good visual impression of these whole things. This is now just unticked. It's about copying and pasting. You can copy and paste, for example, controllers. I just copied this one and pasted it, and I can also just say right mouse click and I delete it again. This is a little bit like in 3D Studio Max, that you can work with instances and you can make these unique. You can zoom in, zoom out, and zoom extend for all of this, and this is something I sometimes use quite often. It's a navigation field, so you have a really good overview here on this field and to navigate and see if there are probably some controllers which you have still in your scene and you are not really aware of this. You can turn on nodes on and off, and these two things are quite important, because what you can do is you can just select one object and just say you go into collapse items, and then all the items, all the controllers and things like this are just integrated, hidden. You can also see it with this symbol. You can also then say expand items, and if you go into this field and say hide unused channels, I probably do this with this Hydra, then you can just see that it just goes down to a really compact element. And especially if you open a scene where you already worked on and open it with 3D Studio Max again, sometimes these things are just collapsed, so you just select them and just go into show all channels, and then you have the full list. And this list sometimes can be really long, so it's better to close some of these parameters. Reload is a really nice new function in para3D. I can, for example, choose my Hydra and I just say add a new edit poly, and I use animate to be able at the end of the day also to work with this in para3D. I select all my polygons. I go into inset and by polygons and just make a little bit of an inset like this. I just rename this edit poly inset to recognize it better in para3D, and on top I can just add a delete mesh, and so this object actually looks like this, and I still can't see it in para3D. What I just have to do is I choose this parahedra, I go into reload properties, and what you can see right now here is a super long list of all my parameters I can change, and here I have my edit poly inset, and that's quite handy because I can just go now into my inset amount and just say I want to randomize it, and I just go into this settings, and difficult to say what kind of parameters I use now because I didn't look at my dimensions, but I just go into randomization between 1 and 3 centimeters. I go into auto update, and it already works quite well. To do it a little bit more obvious, then you can see this was definitely too much. Just say 0.2 centimeters, and I go into update, and we can just see that it just randomized my inset, and this is a really nice thing between this with this reload properties. And if I close this again, it already looks slightly better. To see it in a really nice way, you just go into right mouse click and say filter unused channel, and then it already looks pretty good, but it's not so nicely organized. What you can do is you can select these nodes and controllers. If you just go from left to right, you have to select this with your full selection. If you go from right to left, then it already selects while touching. It's a little bit like AutoCAD, and with right mouse click you can just say arrange, or just use this button. It's the same, arrange nodes, and here you can see that it already looks better. I do the same thing with this one. I just go into arrange, and you can just see that it arranges the whole thing in a more clean way. Also quite nice are these selection tools in para3D. You can just use these pipette and just for example click on my Hydra, and you can just see that then it just moves to these object node I selected, and I'll just do the same to my objects, and you can just see that it just moves to my array object, which is really handy. And the other thing is here you can choose your para node. A para node is a really small thing which is added in 3D Studio Max, and if you go into modify, you can just see all the information about para3D. And if you go into your manage layer, you can also see that there's a layer where all these objects are stored. For example, all my controllers and all my things are already added, and my par array intro is you can also find here, and these things are frozen, but all the information of para3D will be stored in these kind of elements. Here you can also see that there's a naming behind this. This is box 02 I just created, and all the things are related to the items of the object, and if you are used to this, you can really understand the position of your objects and where they actually come from. Okay, also excellent way of selecting is you just go into your node and you just go to select para members, and you can just see that all the members of this array are selected in the viewport of 3D Studio Max. The next minutes we just start to play a little bit with para3D to have a better impression of what you can actually do. And I first have a look at this box array again, and I just select my box and I can just say show all channels, and here we go. My level, I'll just move a little bit to this side, and what we did is we added a linear controller. It's not so much about controllers right now, but I think it's worth seeing very few things. It's a two-dimensional array, so there's the first dimension and there's a second dimension, and these dimensions are completely disconnected to X, Y, and Z. That's really important. So it really doesn't matter in which how they're related to the origin. It's important how they're related to itself. So there's a one dimension like 10 objects, there's a second dimension like 10 objects, and so altogether you have 100 objects, and each controller has its own logic, and we just see what, for example, these controller does. I just moved one box, and you can just see that the boxes are green, the corner boxes are green, so these boxes are more intelligent than the other ones. It could be that I moved the copy box. We can just see this right now if I go into update. No, it's already happening. This means this is corner box number 1, and you can just see that things are following. If I, for example, move this one here to this side, and I go into update controllers, you can just see that everything is following. There's also one thing, but I definitely don't recommend that you should do this on a regular basis. If you choose your node, then you have this option like enable dynamic. You can animate it. For this you have to click your position and then go into node, and now you can animate it. So it's important that you select your controller, and if I go into animate, then you can just select these objects, and you just see that everything is following nicely in real time, and it really depends on your engine and how many controllers you added or how complex your calculation is. Then probably you will get into performance problems. And this little green cube is just a copy which we produce at the beginning when we open para3D. For example, if I just choose this box and I go into para3D, we can see it's this thing, keep original copy, original object, and then the object number 1, box 001, is just there on top. You can always see that we use this animate or dynamic button because something is wet, and I just have to select it again and switch this off. And like I said, don't use it too often because it can be really exhausting, and your whole thing can actually collapse because the calculations are too complex. Okay, I deselect my object, and you can see that I can disconnect my my controllers. I can obviously also just connect them to other objects. I can just use as my second example, we just play a little bit more with this Hydra, and I just go into show all channels, and we just see how many elements I can already use, and this doesn't help much, so I just go again into a right mouse click and say filter unused channel. And we can also add elements. For example, we can just add these disassemble tool, which is really nice. We can use it to produce, to unfold it for digital production. And here, for example, I just add a thickness of 5 millimeters, and I just go into disassemble now, and now you can just see that it's disassembling. Takes a little bit, was already quite complex. I can go into select para members, and if I just move it to the side and have a look at this properly, you can just see that it does it really nicely. They're all independent, and they're also got a dimension, so there's a lot of things you can do. There's one more function I would like to show in my introduction, which is the parametric array in para3D. And we just have a look at this again with my boxes, because this is really interesting, and you will love it if you're used to this. You can choose a parametric array as a copy, instance, and reference. And if you just choose reference, for example, you just connect it with, for example, my box array again. And you can select the first member, which I did right now. And this member is still my box. You can see that this is a reference, and if I go into my modifier list and I just add a modifier, for example, like band, and I change the angle, then you can see that it worked with my first object. And the only thing you have to do is you just go into para3D again and just say reload properties, and then you can see that they all change, and that the controller you just added to the first one already has an impact in para3D, and you can add to all these array items, and can work with this in para3D. Okay, hopefully this was helpful to get into para3D a little bit better, and there are a lot of things to explore, and once you understand the basic concept, you can do all these things in a really intuitive way. Thanks for watching.